being in elected office, it is difficult. It takes balance. We're a part-time legislature. I have to have another job. I have family. I have church. I have other things I'm involved in. And so it really is a balance of making sure that I'm balancing properly, being able to make a living, being able to, have a family and do all of these things, but also making sure that I'm taking care of the people who sent me and making sure I'm in touch with my community, making sure I know the needs of the community that I serve. So those things are important, but the rewards are, I think, beyond. Like people, like when you care about people and when you care for people, they genuinely care for you. Like I have people that I tell people I kid. I say, I don't know if this is because I'm from like small area and my district is largely rural, but I get invited to baby showers. I get invited to weddings of people I do not know. I get invited to family reunions.
Welcome to An Honorable Profession, a podcast focused on incredibly talented people who've dedicated themselves to public service when their country and communities needed it the most. I'm Ryan Coonerty. Along with Debbie Cox Bolton of The New Deal, I'm lucky enough to be your co-host. The New Deal is an organization that supports the next generation of American leaders. Check out newdealleaders.org to find out more. Since he was a child, Mississippi Senator Rod Hickman has believed in the possibilities of public service. He launched his first campaign with his uncle, a retired bus driver, who drove him to every door in his county. Now in the Senate, he's fighting for criminal justice reform, creating economic opportunity, and continuing the Mississippi Miracle, or marathon as he calls it, in education. We talked about the best door-knocking techniques, how to get things done in the minority, and why Mississippi is a snapshot of America. Enjoy. Mississippi Senator Rod Hickman, welcome to An Honorable Profession.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Excited about it.
We're excited to talk to you. You have a really interesting background. You came from criminal defense and prosecution and law. You're now in the legislature. Can you talk a little bit about that journey and how your work informed your work in the Mississippi Senate?
So, I'll start by saying, of course, Mississippi is a part-time legislature. So I'm still a practicing attorney doing that defense work and some other areas of law. But prior to going to the legislature, as you mentioned, I was a county prosecutor. That was my first elected role. And I was elected to represent my county, basically to prosecute misdemeanors. And I was a youth court prosecutor. So all youth court things that came through the county, I was able to do that. The youth court portion of the job is one of the things that I held most closely. And I'm still doing that work. Mississippi's in the process of looking into like our youth court system, what it looks like. We have a real issue in Mississippi where depending on what county you're in, that depends on how the law of youth court works. And so we're trying to uniform our youth court system and bring us to a point where no matter what part of the state you're in, you're getting the same type of representation, you're getting the same type of judge, you're getting the same type of law being applied to whatever the situation is. And so I carry that near and deep. Another thing I would like to mention is that you asked me about how does that inform my work. The first piece of legislation I passed was actually dealing with the county prosecutor role. What in Mississippi, way long time ago, each county had a county prosecutor, and then you have the district attorney's office who would prosecute your felonies and things of that nature. But the county prosecutors assisted the district attorney's office. And so in my district, we have like 5 counties. And when I first became a legislator, no county prosecutor could practice criminal law in any of the counties that made up their DA circuit. And so for me, I'm in a really rural county. I couldn't practice for like 4 counties over. I could practice no criminal law. But I had no interface really with the district attorney's office because they now have assistant district attorneys. The county prosecutors don't do that anymore. And so we passed a simple piece of legislation that basically said that you are barred from practicing criminal law in the county in which you're the county prosecutor of, because you do handle some pretrial stuff, but all the other counties, you can practice in those. And that was a huge win. Everybody thought it made sense. It was common sense. I think the issue was that nobody really knew in the legislature that this was an issue, and nobody knew to tell the legislature that this was the issue. But because I came from the role, I was able to do that. And that was actually my first session, the first piece of legislation I was able to pass.
That it helps to bring that real life perspective right into the job right away. Can you talk about when you're trying to reform any part of the system, but youth criminal justice? Obviously, you're in the minority. How do you build bipartisan support to try to implement these reforms across Mississippi?
I think it's a thing of understanding that issues are issues and people are people. And there are some issues that my colleagues and we understand that we do not agree on. I think no matter how much we talk about some things, we're not going to agree on it. But very early on in my legislative career, I learned a principle that has just stuck with me throughout my legislative career, and that is always assume positive intent. And so when I go in and speaking with my colleagues, I'm always going to assume that they are coming from a positive place, even if I vehemently disagree with them on an issue. And that has enabled me to walk across party lines and be able to work with people on issues, because the issues are the issues. People are people. These people are still my friends. And so I guess the biggest thing is building strong relationship with your colleagues who are on the other side of the aisle and maintaining a level of respect. I think all of my colleagues respect me. They know that there are some issues that, again, I'm not moving on. There are some issues that I'm not going to support you. In fact, I'm going to vehemently disagree, and I'm going to have my floor speeches and floor stump. But they also know that when I give you my word, I keep my word, no matter what that is. And so building strong relationships enable you to be able to get things done, pass legislation. And it doesn't even lend to this whole thing of like, I'm not compromising, because I hold true my values, and my colleagues know that and they respect that.
You talked about your journey from being a prosecutor, practicing criminal defense law. What made you run for the legislature?
So I actually always knew that I wanted to be in a legislative body. I always knew that I wanted to be a lawmaker in a sense. And oddly enough, since I was like a kid, I've always known who my legislators were, and I knew that's something I want to do. In fact, that kind of informed my decision to go to law school. Most people don't know this, but until I was a senior in college, I wanted to come home and be a math teacher. I was a math minor, and I was doing all the things. And then I realized that the education system needed some reform, and there was other things that I wanted to do. And so spur of the moment, I took the LSAT, ended up going to law school, and I thought that would lend me to a better path to the legislature. And I still get to do some of the things I said I wanted to do. Like I represent, as in my private practice, I represent some educational entities. I represent some school districts, community college. And so I get to practice education law. And so I found that law would merge all the things I wanted to do together, and I'm able to do that. What
drew you as a kid to understand, to knowing who your state legislators were? Not a lot of kids spend a lot of time thinking about their state legislators. What do you think drew you about that path?
So actually, you asked the perfect question. That's why I'm kind of smiling, because it was actually just politics in general. My father ran for public office in 1999 when I was 10 years old. He ran for basically a justice of the peace in Mississippi. It's a justice court judge. And while he wasn't successful, he took me out on the campaign trail. I got to meet these people, and I fell in love with politics in general. And that's why I always knew that I wanted to be a public servant. And that just kind of sparked my interest. And so ever since then, I've known who represented me and what capacity. And all through school, I ran for every single office that I could. I've done all the things. And so that's what lit the bug. It was literally my father planting a seed by taking me out on the trail, taking me to these events where I got to meet other people. And while he wasn't successful, I always say, like, he planted the seed and it came into fruition through me.
And that's a great story. I was in high school and my dad ran for mayor because we had a big earthquake, and he owned a bookstore, and the downtown was destroyed, and he ran to help rebuild downtown. And it was one of those things of, at the time, I don't know that I appreciated it, but it clearly made an impact. Talk about that run for office. Like, how did you decide when and where to run? What was that first knocking on doors like? And for our listeners who are thinking about it, what's your advice?
So I will say that I have the best. So first of all, let me rewind. In Mississippi, even the county prosecutor is an elected role. And so it's a countywide position. So I had to run in my whole county. I had the best campaign manager that there ever was. And there's a funny story I'll probably tell you at the end of this. He was my uncle, and he had helped other people with campaigns. But my uncle, he was a little older at the time. He was a bus driver before he retired. And so he knew where everybody in my county lived. Like I'm in a small county. He knew where all 12,000 people lived. And he took me to every single house. I mean, there were some people who lived 10 miles from the nearest house. He took me to every single house, but he refused to get out. He made me go do my stump speech. And then when he knew people, he would say, "Tell Sally to come to the car and see me." And then he would yell, "How did he do? Did he say what he needed to say?" And he would basically check behind me. And so after knocking on every door in my county to run for county prosecutor, I'm the best door knocker. I'm the best canvasser that you will ever find. And the one thing my team will tell you is that even when I was running for the Senate, there was never a time that a team was out that I wasn't out with them. Like I would have a team out and they would literally be able to tell people, "Oh, you want to speak to the candidate? He's 2 streets over. Let me go and get him and bring him back to your house." And so I actually like door knocking. My last campaign was right outside of the COVID era. So it was a little different at that time. People were more cautious. People were more scared to open their doors and stuff like that. But I've always enjoyed canvassing because I think that it's the opportunity to get to know the people that you're going to serve. And so it was a little scary at first, but after being broken in by my first campaign manager, I was able to do it. And unfortunately, my uncle ended up passing away right before I ran for Senate. But the funny story I was going to tell you, not only was he my campaign manager, but I remember when I was running for county prosecutor, I needed day of money to pay the people who were going to work at the polls and all this kind of stuff. And this tells you how country we are. My uncle had a bull who basically couldn't breed anymore and wasn't productive. And so he gave me the bull as a campaign gift, and the bull was huge. And we sold him at the stockyard and made I think we made almost $2,000. And that's how I paid my day of people for my county prosecutor campaign through my uncle's bull.
Wow. All right. I like it. I got to ask, so for people who don't have an uncle who's a bus driver and also aren't going to gift them a bull, what's the secret to being a good door knocker? What's effective? What works?
I think generally being concerned about people. I think people feel you, people know you. I had people who were, and just FYI, my seat was open. My seat was open seat. My predecessor retired after 30 years. And of course, everybody knows once you have a seat that has been filled for 30 years, everybody runs. So there were 9 people on the ballot with me. Oh, wow. And I would show up to people's houses and they would say, "Well, my cousin or my nephew or this person is running for the same position." But they would say, "You seem so genuine." And I would literally say to them, I said, "Look, if your cousin or your whoever doesn't, I can never be mad at you for being honest with me and telling me that you got to support this person. But if they don't make it into the runoff, I want you to support me because I believe I'm going to make it into the runoff." And people just would feel that sense of genuineness about it. So just be genuine, be real, be concerned about people. And when you're concerned about people, it shows. And like I said, even when you're at somebody's family member house, when you're genuine, they're not giving rude responses. They're not running you off their yard. They're actually listening to what you have to say. And, some of those people came onto my team in the runoff and became some of the best captains I could ever have. And so it's just a matter of caring about people. People want to feel heard. People want to feel cared about. And people want to know that you care about the issues that they care about.
That makes sense. Is there any, what's your opening line when you knock on the door to engage and make sure that people feel that your genuineness?
Now you're putting me on the spot because I haven't had to. Fortunately enough, after there was 9 people in this position, that was in 2021. I did not have to run in 2023, and we're not up again until next year. So that leaves me, I'm a little rusty. That leaves me about 6 years since I've knocked on doors. But typically I made sure, the one thing I made sure of is that anytime we went out, the whole team, everybody had on shirts. So we could be identified. People know that this is a campaign that you're coming to. So most of the time they knew who I was. And I would just show up and say, "Hey, I'm Rod Hickman. I'm running for Mississippi Senate District 32. These are kind of the things I care about." And I would leave it open. What do you care about? How can I earn your support? And another thing I'm rusty, but the one thing that we always close on, and I found this to be so effective, is you got to ask people for their vote. And what I learned is that most people will be truthful to you. Like I literally also have people at their door say, oh my God, I wish you would have gotten here first because I already promised my vote to this person. And that's when I would go to the next round, vote for me. But people literally keep their word. Don't put me on the spot. Well, don't count me if I'm wrong, but I think like statistically, I read somewhere that somewhere around 70% of people, if they promise you their vote, they're actually going to do it if they show up to the polls and vote because people keep their word. And so a lot of times I don't know exactly what I say in the beginning that's important, but at the end, I'm always asking like, hey, can I count on your support? Hey, can I count on you to show up and vote for me or XYZ or some variation of that? And when you tie people in, they typically keep their word.
That's really good advice. That was Speaker Tip O'Neill. That was his thing. He learned in his first race, like a friend of the family, he assumed that she was going to vote for him. And then he found out she didn't. And it's like, well, you never asked. If you don't ask, you don't get my vote.
That happened to me. And I tell people, that's one thing I give people when they run for office. I said, never take people advantage. I don't care how well you know them. People want you to ask them for their vote. They want you to basically campaign. They want to know these things. And so I would ask people and they'd be like, I'm voting for you. And I was like, nope, never taking it for granted. I would ask cousins. I would ask church members. Like I'm making sure that you're a part of the team. And that's important. So
once you're elected, I mean, in the county role and then now as a senator, how different is it than what you envisioned as a kid? When you were thinking about all these politics, how's it been for you serving in office?
I don't know how different it is from what I envisioned as a kid, because I'll be honest, I've always wanted to be a servant. And in most capacities that I'm in, I serve. Like I even consider my practice as a service. I tell a lot of people, I think I'll always be taken care of. I'll always be able to make a living, but I'll never be rich because I care about people too much. And so I see everything I do as a service, and that's all I've ever wanted to do. But being in elected office, it is difficult. It takes balance. We're a part-time legislature. I have to have another job. I have family. I have church, I have other things I'm involved in. And so it really is a balance of making sure that I'm balancing properly, being able to make a living, being able to, have a family and do all of these things, but also making sure that I'm taking care of the people who sent me and making sure I'm in touch with my community, making sure I know the needs of the community that I serve. So those things are important, but the rewards are, I think, beyond. Like people, like when you care about people and when you care for people, they genuinely care for you. Like I have people that I tell people I kid. I say, I don't know if this is because I'm from like small area and my district is largely rural, but I get invited to baby showers. I get invited to weddings of people I do not know. I get invited to family reunions. And guess what? Sometimes I just show up and they're like, wait, the senator's at your baby shower. I don't know anybody here except like the grandmother of the person who showered is who invited me. And so it's very rewarding to get to know people. Like somebody had like a card writing campaign and this random number text my campaign phone that I put on everything from the campaign. It was like, hey, my mom turned 93. We want to collect 93 cards. Can you send us one? And lo and behold, I took out of my desk, I had cards that said Ryan Hickman, and I wrote out this birthday card. And they called me the next week and they was like, that was the most amazing thing. My mom, like, yeah, they told me who her mom was. And I actually had sat on a porch while I was canvassing and sat on the porch with her for a long time. They was like, you literally made my mom's birthday. She ended up getting the 93 cards, but you happen to be one of the favorites. So the rewards are there. It means a lot to people. It means a lot to your community. And more than anything, we need a diverse background of people. So I think anybody who's thinking about it, they should do it. And it's going to be rewarding in its own way. We don't make a lot of money, but it's rewarding in its own way.
Definitely both true. They're not little money and rewarding. How do you actually tactically balance all these things that you have to do and still be an effective servant and be a provider for your family and all the things that you're doing?
I think, I tell people all the time that I often have to remember why I ran for office, and that's making sure that I could be a servant. And so that stays at the forefront. I also try to measure how productive I am in the role. And I say to people as well, I said, the minute that I feel like I'm not making an impact, and the seat in which I sit in, the literal seat representing Mississippi Senate District 32, when I feel like I'm not making an impact or that the seat is not better off by me sitting in that seat, it's time for me to go home. And so I keep those metrics in front of me. I keep measuring those things to make sure they're there. I also measure, I have a daughter. I've also measured by my daughter. Like, am I able to attend things that she have? Am I able to do this? And at the moment that these things conflict, I have to make some decision because my first ministry is to my family and to all those things. And so it's really is every day. Like some days, particularly when I'm in session, I'm giving the legislature 90% and everything else 10. But there are other days where I'm giving everything else 90% in the legislature 10. You really just have to balance these things out and make sure. And every now and then, like quarterly, I check in to see where am I? Have I been able to do this? Have I been able to check that? Because at the end of the day, people, I'm not going to be in office forever. I don't plan to be one of those people who served in the Senate for 50 years and all of those things. And so I keep my metrics in front of me, make sure I'm being effective, make sure I'm being an impact. And as long as those things are current, I keep going.
And tell me, I mean, when you're trying to make an impact in Mississippi, what are the issues? What's the state of play politically in Mississippi, and how impactful or hopeful are you that you can make an impact on people's lives using policy?
I think I'd like to think that I've been pretty impactful and effective. I'll start by saying this. The one thing I learned very early on is that being a part of a minority party, and we are one seat over from a super majority in the Senate. Like we just last year tipped over from being a super majority to just a regular majority Republican. And of course, I am a Democrat. And then in the House, there's a supermajority. All 8 constitutional offices are held by Republicans. So for all intents and purposes, this is a very, very deeply red state. But I make impacts and we make impacts that are sometimes small and that people will never hear about. It's the behind the scene that they bring out a bill. And because I have a relationship, a colleague said, hey, would you read through this? I know you're probably not going to agree with it. I know you're probably going to vote no, but can you read through this and tell me where are the issues and what things? And it may go through 4 or 5 different edits. And at the end of the day, when it gets to the floor, it may be a much better bill than it was that I probably am still going to vote against because I disagree with the main principle. But I think those are things that help the lives of Mississippians, whereas we got bad legislation, but I can help make it better by being where I am and in the position that I'm in. But even more than that, there are some things that are non-controversial. It's just that you need a mind or you need someone who, again, cares about people, who's concerned about the state moving forward, that we get to get in here and we get to make policies. And so I truly believe that what I do affect the people that I represent in the whole state of Mississippi. And I'm able to make sometimes small impact, sometimes greater or grander impact, just depending on what the issue is, how partisan it has become. And everybody knows, like, this country is extremely partisan. But the one thing I still enjoy about state politics, particularly in Mississippi, is that about 80 to 90% of the time, we all vote together, because I always say, and this is what keeps me grounded, is that 90% of the people in the room that I'm in the Mississippi State Senate, 90% of the time, and maybe even higher than that, definitely not below 90, want to move Mississippi forward and see Mississippi better. We just disagree on how to get there. And that keeps me grounded, that we all have the same mission.
That's an interesting perspective that your impact may be, first of all, it may be unseen, because I don't know that anyone knows that you're reviewing these bills that you're ultimately voting against, but you are making bad bills better. How do you get to the point where they trust you to look at bills that they know you're not going to support, but they still want your feedback? I
think that, for me, some of the older senators who are in the Republican Party, they respected me from the time I walked in the door, because I came in, and Mississippi in the Senate, we represent roughly about 54 to 57,000 people. And I came in and sat down and said to myself, also, let me rewind. I came in during off election year. I came in midterm. My predecessor retired midterm, so I took over for him. So I came in without a class. I was a class of my own in a sense. But I came in and my whole mindset was just like everybody else. I don't care if you've been here for one day or for 40 years, I represent the same amount of people that you represent. And so I always carried myself in a manner that I'm representing these people. I spoke up very early. I've always been respectful as much as possible. And I've always made myself knowledgeable of anything that I'm going to talk about. And I think that may be the attorney in me. Like, we don't like to ask questions. We don't like to talk about things that we don't know. And so I've made myself knowledgeable on the issues I was going to talk about. And I limited the things. Like, if I don't know anything about it, I'm not getting up on a megaphone just to yell just because. And so I think my colleagues respect the fact that I'm not going to yell unless something is really a problem for me. But they also recognize that I care about the people that I represent, and I'm somewhat of a safe space in that I'm going to give you this from a knowledge of not necessarily what I want, but what's going to affect other parts of the state that you may not have that worldview of, or you may have not come up, or you don't understand what it is to live like this or in this place or to come from that background. And so I think it's just a matter of over time, you win the respect of people. But the one thing, if I had to say one thing, is honesty is always important. I think in a legislative body, being honest is the utmost important. When people find out that you're a dishonest person, nobody really wants to trust you. And so trust is a big factor there.
You mentioned that everyone represents the same number of people. During this year, we've had a major Supreme Court ruling around the Voting Rights Act. How has that played out in Mississippi when everyone may represent the same number of people, but the districts may be drawn in creative ways to lessen that representation?
I like that, creative ways. So Mississippi has been marked safe so far. They called a special session and the governor canceled it. We've heard murmurings. I think one of the things that will happen in Mississippi is that when I just talked about how we broke the supermajority in the Mississippi State Senate, that was through court order. We had to redraw 2 districts, and we had a special election and brought in 2 new senators who both happened to be part of the Democratic Party. And I think that at a minimum, they're probably going to attempt to reverse that and take us back to the 2022-2023 maps. I think that happens. Our state is so diverse in that we're almost, I think, like 38.9. We're almost 40% African American in the state. And so it's difficult, I think, for them to come up with a map that works for our congressional districts. And that's why they're pausing on that. I think they will try it, but they didn't do it before the midterms because they understand we have one representative who is African-American and Democrat, and he represents the African-American district. I think when you get to playing with those numbers, I think most of the incumbents are saying, no, you don't want to mess with that. We've already fixed these maps kind of the way we want to. Don't mess with those. Because I think Mississippi stands the risk of creating 2 opportunity districts and 2 safe districts instead of having 3 safe districts and 1 Democratic district. And so I'm betting on that. I think people are just looking at what happened in the midterm. Americans are upset. Americans are fed up. Americans want to see a political system that works for them. And so I think they're looking to see what happens in the midterm. So that's a long way of saying, of course, I'm not in the party in control. I don't know what their intentions are, but I think Mississippi is going to be a difficult place to implement some of the things that other states have implemented just because of the diversity of our population.
All right. That's good news. Fingers crossed. So for wrapping it up, for our listeners who are outside of Mississippi, maybe never been there. I've been there a bunch of times. I love it. It's amazing.
Come back.
I will.
Spend as many tax dollars as possible. And to all of our listeners, we invite you to Mississippi to spend as many tax dollars as possible.
What do folks outside of Mississippi, outside of the South, need to know about Mississippi to understand the politics, the opportunities, the challenges that are there? I think
that's a perfect question. And the one thing I've been saying over the last couple of years is that Mississippi is America. And the current state of the government, the current state of this country shows that Mississippi is America, and America is as much Mississippi as it is any other state in this country. Mississippi has been a leader in a lot of places at a lot of different times, and not always for good stuff. Mississippi but also has some good stuff going on. I mean, right now, everybody in the country is looking to Mississippi for education. They call it the Mississippi Miracle. We call it the Mississippi Marathon. It's a lot of hard work over a long period of time. And so people looking at Mississippi, I always tell people that if you want to know kind of direction of this country and what's happening and what's going on, come down and look at Mississippi. And just as this country is on the cusp of change and all that kind of stuff, I believe Mississippi is in the same place, at the same place. It is ripe for opportunity. It is a great place to live. And I always, even when I was on a campaign trail, one of the things that I ran on and campaigned on is that like I could be anywhere, but I choose to be in Mississippi because we may not have like the skyscrapers and all the things that, you know, cities and booming metropolitan places have, but the best thing we have, our best resources are our people. And I don't think you find greater people anywhere in Mississippi. We are striving. We are trying to make Mississippi a better place, the country a better place, this world a better place. And so when you think about this country being on the cusp of something and a shifting in like what politics and things like that look like, I think you also look to Mississippi because we're in the same place. We're quietly shifting. If you look at our last elections, you'll see that we keep getting closer and closer and closer. You know, people are looking at all these other states that turn them blue and all this kind of stuff. Mississippi's doing the same work. If we could get some of the investment that other places have been getting, I think Mississippi is the next state that carries us over the hump. I'll also add this and say for anybody who's out there listening, I often try and tell people that blue states, they don't really have many other places to go. Like we're up north and all these other places. These places seem to be changing and our swing states seem to be swinging red more and more and more. I think your maps down south is where the party and people who want progressive politics need to start looking, because this is where you have a dedicated group of people who are there. We just need just a few more percentage points to push us over the line. And so I said all that to say, I think Mississippi is a great investment always, and we're going to see where this country is shifting and going.
I love it. I can't wait to see what you do. I can't wait to see where Mississippi goes. Thank you for your many different ways you're doing service and sharing your insights today on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
An Honorable Profession is a New Deal Leaders podcast. And because we keep things honorable, no tax dollars were used in the making of this podcast.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group.